threat briefing. Just a quick audio check. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Hopefully you guys can hear me. Everything sounds good. Let's get rolling. All right. So this week's episode is jam-packed. It's stuffed like a burrito. It's coming out the sides. We got guacamole everywhere on the floor out here. Let's first get right into the main story that we need to talk about, which is, the phishing and the deep fakes. Now, the top thing that's been happening with these phishing and the deep fakes has been, and hopefully you guys can see it here, it has been this story about this elderly guy in California scammed out of $25,000. And the deal was the threat actor was using AI technology, an AI-generated phone call pretending that he was his son. And the way these things happen is you've got a threat actor who finds a lot of videos, maybe on YouTube, of the guy's son, maybe finds him on TikTok, and then he just takes those little bits of seconds of video and clones the guy's son. And he said that the son pretended like he called, claimed he was in an accident, and that he was arrested, and that he urgently needs funds because he hit a pregnant woman. And then a couple minutes later, another phone call comes in, and this time it was not Anthony's son. It was a lawyer, a guy pretending to be a lawyer. And he said, hey, I just need a payment of about $9,000, $9,200 to get your son out of jail. And then Anthony got a little bit suspicious. Anthony said, I'm going to call back that number. The phone number of his son was actually spoofed. And then a third call comes in. The final call comes in. And again, the fake lawyer says, hey, that pregnant woman that your son struck with his car? Well, she died from her injuries. Again, you have that sense of urgency. And the bail amount is at $25,000. If you can go to the bank, Anthony, and get me the money, I can have somebody come over in an Uber and pick it up and then drop it off at the jail. Again, this is those things you got to look out for, right? Elderly people are not aware how easy this voice cloning can be done. They need to be aware of how quickly it can happen. And also, the family should have a safe word for situations like this. And this guy actually involved his daughter as well. And that's when the daughter got real suspicious on how this happened. Again, we'll include the link to the story if you want to learn more. A couple other things happening in the news of scams and phishing. This is a very popular cybersecurity company called ESET. ESET, a very prominent cybersecurity firm. And what the malicious actors did is they sent out emails to the ESET customers pretending as though they were from the advanced threat defense team. And they said that there were advanced state backers that were targeting the devices of their clients. And what's really interesting about these vendor impersonation phishing emails, again, this has a lot to do with business email compromise. What you have here is these phishing emails, they passed this through the secure email gateway tools that these companies have. It passed the DKIM, it passed the SPF authentication checks, and then in the phishing email, it said, hey, here's a link to download this security tool called ESET Unleashed. And then, of course, customers thinking it was genuinely an email from ESET, the vendor ESET, they start installing this fake security tool, ESET Unleashed. So again, you got to be real cognizant of that. This is really important, especially when companies get breached and they think they're dealing with their managed service provider or their IT staff. The IT staff got breached, the vendor, the MSP got breached, and here it is, the customer's communicating with who they think is their vendor, but it's not. It's the bad guy pretending to be their vendor. So again, very popular stuff. All right, another thing in the news is the FBI coming out and they're warning everybody about these phony debt collectors. The law firm gets contacted. The deal is these alleged debt collecting matters come through. They said, hey, we got this creditor, we got this prospective client, and we want to help. We want to get this debtor under control and get them to pay. The debtor, meanwhile, gets a phone call and says, hey, you need to pay this debt, and all you have to do is send a valid cashier's check to the law firm, and we can settle this right now. The law firm deposits the check into their client's trust account, then transfers that value to the creditor via a wire and any legal fees that were agreed upon. And then the law firm is the one that has to deal with this because they're the ones that have the trust account gets charged back to them. The wire's already been sent to the creditor, and the law firm has to suffer. So here's what you do. If you're a law firm, you really need a handle on this. You got to have policies in place, two-step verifications. You got to have delays in place or holds on funds, those kind of things. So this thing is going around. It's very popular right now, hitting a lot of law firms. Okay. How else can you avoid being scammed? Well, I thought this was interesting. A couple weeks ago in one of our briefings, we talked about KnowBe4. They're a cybersecurity company. They actually had this fake North Korean IT worker make it through all of the interview processes and actually get hired and got sent one of the company laptops through the mail. And KnowBe4 came out, very respectable to them. They said, what are we going to do different so this doesn't happen again? And you know what's interesting? They came out with their top 10 list of ways that they're going to update their hiring process. I thought this was pretty interesting. You know, a lot of people are out there hiring remote workers. So what they said they're going to do differently is train all their IT staff, all their HR, their recruiters. They're going to actually teach them how to look for common red flags when they have fake resumes sent to them. And a lot of that has to do with how the email addresses are structured. You got to be looking at home addresses too. They've got to be searching. The recruiter has to put a little bit more on their shoulders and looking at the IP address and so on. But it also means KnowBe4 said, we're going to give HR some tools like phone carrier lookups, screening tools, all these kind of things we do here at SecurityMetrics. And it's cool to see other companies doing it too. And also looking at, the phone number on the resume. Is it a VoIP number? Is it a cell phone number? So subscribing, this is what we put in here. If you subscribe to our SecurityMetrics threat intel feed, you get notifications of all the latest scams and phishes that we find in the news, and you can share that with your employees. Of course, changing processes is important, your hiring processes. Phone-based screenings instead of just email-based screenings. I didn't know that that's all they were doing. Recruiting staff, you got to teach them and train them how to search the applicant's public profile, so looking on social media. And then some of the other things they recommended is changing their background check vendors. They're actually going to go to a ID verification firm that handles airport background checks. I thought that was cool. They're updating their interview process. Videos have to be on. The cameras have to be on in Zoom interviews and Google Meet interviews, phone interviews. And then the recruiters are also being asked, again, to go deeper. If they get suspicion, they've got to, ask questions like, oh, I see on your resume, you're from Seattle. Hey, have you ever been to the fish market there? What part of Seattle do you live in? Those kind of questions can help you identify, those fake resume people. And then, of course, taking on partners. And then this is something that I did not know happened in the KnowBe4 situation. They sent the laptop to the remote employee, but they never verified the location. And what they're doing differently now is instead of sending it directly to the employee's home, the new employee's home, they are now sending it to a UPS store location that's going to require an ID verification. So, again, fascinating stuff. All right. Insider threat news, there has been quite a few in the news lately. The one that caught my eye was about TikTok. I know. I talk about TikTok all the time because I'm not a fan of TikTok, but they had to fire one of their interns. One of their interns went rogue? What does that mean? They were tampering with TikTok's AI. TikTok claims, no, the extent of the damage isn't bad at all. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along. Okay, TikTok, I believe you. Man. Meanwhile, that intern's career has gone off the rails. Another inside threat story is about these learning models, these large language models that are used in AI. And what I thought was interesting, I think this was on Dark Reading, they said that LLMs and AI should be treated as a potential adversary. Wow, because they lack critical thinking skills. Again, interesting stuff. Why? Why would you think that way? And they laid it out very eloquently in their report. They said that here's the risk of AI and LLMs. They lack the critical thinking skills. They behave in ways they aren't supposed to. They're susceptible to manipulation. I thought it was interesting, too, how LLMs can be manipulated in the best interest of what hackers want to do and how these LLMs can be jailbroken pretty easily. There's a lot of techniques out there way beyond scope that we have time to discuss today, but the way these LLMs can respond to user queries can break them, and that is what is expanding your attack surface in your business. So my recommendation to all of you is understand and at least become educated as a business owner of what these LLMs can do. And especially if you're integrating AI, and chances are you have software like accounts payable software, HR stuff, maybe even inventory management software, all of it now using LLMs and AI, that's expanding your attack surface. So just get a handle on that. Get knowledgeable on what tools in your business use AI. Okay. What does that mean about AI though? We were all over this a couple months ago in our briefings talking about the importance of having an AI policy. And then here comes this crazy story. I think this was on highereducation.com, and they're talking about AI policies are obsolete. And it reminded me of the Twilight Zone episode about being obsolete, the town of obsolete, I think it was. But here's the thing with AI policies. Most people will write an AI policy and they don't realize that literally every single app out there now has AI integrated into its platform. It's everywhere. You can't escape AI. It used to be this hot buzzword, right? Oh, our platform has AI in it. And now we're at a point where, okay, everybody else has AI too, So what do? All right. You develop your AI guidelines and your data security education. That's where you put your efforts and your energy. So employees have to know, they have to realize what's the consequences if I upload PII or sensitive business data into these AI apps and these platforms without permission, all right? So getting them aware of how important it is, they lock down the data and you just don't go randomly putting it into, like Google, I think Google Word, that Google Docs platform, they have AI embedded into their tools. You want to write an email, they'll help you do it. You got to be careful what you type into that stuff. And the main reason is because they're training their LLMs to improve, and they're using your data to improve and train their LLMs. How dare they? All right. What else is going on in the world? Well, we mentioned it's the entire month of October. We're celebrating around here, party time. It is Security Awareness Month, and this is such a great time to supercharge your employees' knowledge around security awareness. What you do is go to Secure Our World, their website. So many free tools. We mentioned it last week. We're going to mention it again. You go to their site, cisa.gov/secureourworld, and they have so many cool tools on there. The big tips they're giving away is about the normal tips that we talk about almost all the time here. Recognizing, reporting phishing, strong passwords, turn on MFA, updating software. But we also have our shorts. We mentioned this last week, but these short 60-second clips, you share them with your team in startup meetings, in the break rooms, and so on. And they're very, very powerful stuff. We try to take these phishing things that are in the news, the latest scams, and condense them down to just 60 seconds. It's really hard to do this. Okay, what else is going on? Well, we mentioned Jen's podcast, Jen Stone Experience. Episode 104 is right now on the air. This is cybersecurity for families. It's a really good episode to share with your wife, your kids, your husband, so on. All right, next week, what are we talking about? I'm sorry, this week, we do 2 minutes of learning. We talk about your child's photos. Baby and kids pics, folks, they are a bundle of bytes for bad guys. What can you do about it? Well, if you're concerned, I think the first thing is knowledge that tech companies are not your best friend. They, especially these social media companies, they're not transparent with your kids' photos. They're not about kids' consent at all. It's non-existent for the most part. So social media platforms, oftentimes, they're going to be using your kids' photos to train their AI platform. And wow, it is not easy to not use these social media platforms. You could always just not post, and that's not the easiest thing to do in the world. But of course, you have friends and family who take photos of your kids, and they put them on their social media feeds. Again, reminding them, one of the hot things that everybody seems to like to do is put an emoji over their kid's face. That works. Just don't edit the emoji inside the app of whatever social media platform you're using. Take pics with their faces turned away. That's another strategy. You could always just send the pics over text, over email, but make sure you use encrypted apps like Signal, for example. You could also do this, and this is the one tip that I recommend, is limit the access that these social media apps have to your photos. And you do that under settings, and here's how you do it. On an iPhone, you go down to settings, you scroll down to the social media app, you select photos, and here's the steps for Android. So you can manually unselect the photos that are shared with many of these social media platforms. Highly recommend it. Okay, so there's our 2 minutes of learning. Less than 2 minutes of learning. What is next week? Well, we're going to talk about e-skimming because it's a big deal right now. 103% jump in e-skimming attacks over the last 6 months, according to Recorded Future. We're going to talk about the online shopping cart threats that are out there and how we stop them and how we try to prevent them for our customers. But of course, it is the month of October, Cyber Awareness Month. If you leave a comment or you share your favorite cyber tip, we will give an EDEC key fob bag. These are those key fob Faraday bags that will protect a bad guy, stop a bad guy from hacking your car, getting into your car when you go into the grocery store or the restaurant. So leave a comment, like, and share. So I dislike television, smart TVs, especially TCL brand. I'm not afraid to throw them under the bus. You can't even adjust the brightness on those TVs. Like on a Sony TV, you can go all the way down to like 0%. With a TCL TV, it's bright, brighter, brightest, dark, darkest. That's it. That's your only choices. But there's more problems with these smart TVs than just TCL. A report came out from the Center for Digital Democracy. What a title. I just want a dumb TV. That's all that I want. But what they're talking about is all the data harvesting and how it's getting out of control. You're forced to accept their terms when you buy a smart television. You have no choice whether you can opt out. And then all the tracking tools. This report is phenomenal. I did not know about all of these tracking tools. I knew about cookieless IDs, but the identity graphing they're doing now, the linking activity across all your devices, they know everything you're watching, how much time you're spending on there, the AI-based ads, analyzing the emotions. Emotional scores is something I did not know about too. So FCC, FTC, California regulators, this report is saying they've got to examine this stuff. Excellent report if you're interested in that. Another report came out about the state of threat intelligence. We are all about threat intelligence around here at SecurityMetrics. We have this Pulse platform. It's really about enabling the business is why threat intelligence is so important. When your business is aware of the bad guys and what they're doing in your environment or how they're trying to get in to your door, then you have a good shot at potentially stopping them. So what they're saying in this report is threat intelligence. It's a way to influence investments and dollars and identify business risk. And that's what we do here at SecurityMetrics. We help you lower your risk. So another report that came out was the Global Mobile, I love saying that, Global Mobile Threat Report. This came from Zimperium. This is another good report. What they're saying is there's a change right now by threat actors. I think we can all agree that they've been going after cell phones for a while, but the mobile first is their attack strategy primarily now. And what that means is they are primarily designing their phishing sites to go after mobile devices. We mentioned this in a couple briefings ago, progressive web apps, PWAs. Mobile malware, though, increased 13% last year. I imagine that number is going to keep going up. Everybody's on their phones nowadays. All right. What else is happening? Well, if you want the links, you want to know all the news that's happening in the last week, all the stuff we talk about in this briefing is available to you. You can subscribe on the weekly threat intelligence feed. It's curated for businesses like yours and businesses that need to protect themselves. So what keeps us up at night? We've been getting a lot of questions about password managers, and then in the news, they talked about it. So we figured we'd take a brief moment. Is my password manager secure? Can somebody else see my passwords in my password manager? And really what this is about is when you get a new device and you're now going to upload and move to the new device and you're worried that your passwords are going to be seen when you start to transfer them to the new device. That is the primary concern here. So can they? The answer, thankfully, is no. And you're going to have to bear with me here. This is a little complicated topic. We're talking about hashing here, and hashing is a one-way function. This is why your passwords are not stored in plain text when you access them. They're encrypted. They're encrypted on your device locally, and your cloud provider cannot see your passwords. When you sync those passwords between a new device and your old device, they cannot see that because your provider, they only receive the encrypted passwords. So good to know, right? A little bit of sweat. It's not rolling off the brow so much. What else is happening? Well, there are vulnerabilities every week. There's patches. I always say, remember the date. July 25th is Hug Your IT Administrator Day. Hug your network admin. A couple of the things in the news about from last week. Just a reminder: the SolarWinds thing, the Palo Alto thing, the Splunk thing, the GitLab thing. You gotta be patching those. But this week, what are we talking about? Well, VMware was the top vulnerability story. We're talking about fixing an exploitable flaw, CVE 2024 3888112. This got a 9.8 out of 10. And this was exposed at a Chinese hacking contest. So you know it's really important. If you got VMware, you got to fix. Atlassian had a lot of patches that came out. There's a Microsoft said, "Oh, we found a Mac OS vulnerability." Thanks, Microsoft. Nice of you to point out what our competitors have flaws, right? This is a big deal because this Mac OS flaw, the vulnerability, it is one that allows the bad guy to potentially see your camera, your microphone, so you got to patch up. All right, WordPress also had a big vulnerability that got patched as well for Jetpack. That's a plugin. But of course, a lot of our business clientele, they use Ubiquiti products. The unified network server is the one that is in the news right now. If your business uses Unify, please patch this sucker. This is a nasty. It is a privileged escalation vulnerability on a self-hosted unified network server. And if you're running any version of Unify's network server 8.4.62 or lower, you need to patch. All right. What else is happening in the news? Well, we got case studies. We love doing our case studies every week. These are things that our SOC, our Security Operations Center threat analysts, find on behalf of our clients. And Charles, if you're there, go ahead and open up your mic.
Yeah, so this was a case that we found where this was a new device that suddenly showed up on the network and immediately started sending out BitTorrent traffic. So BitTorrent is a peer-to-peer network system. Essentially, it lets you download files from other clients around the internet, but it's very commonly used for distributing malware, distributing pirated movies, the sorts of stuff you don't want to have on your business network. So we alerted the client, let them know that this was going on, and advised them to check on that device located in the network and shut it down.
Charles, where does this happen in the cyber kill chain?
Yeah, so it's a little bit, it depends on exactly what it's been used for, but it's definitely a vector for delivery, or if a malicious file has already been delivered, then it can lead to exploitation.
Wow. Good stuff. Great find, by the way. Thank you on behalf of all our clients that you do this.
Of course, there are other stories in the news, and I want to just take a brief moment and talk about double extortion. A lot of confusion out there. What is double extortion ransomware? And Akira is one of the threat actors out there. They have pivoted back towards this modus operandi of going after double extortion. So in plain, simple jargon, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. When you think of a traditional ransomware attack, you think of it like this. A bad guy gets in, they make some lateral movements, they move around the network, they find something of value. Maybe it's on an HR server, maybe it's a payroll server, maybe it's your inventory management. And then they encrypt that data, then they make a ransom demand of your business, and then you either pay it and get the recovery keys, or you choose to start over with a fresh backup, loading from backup. In the double extortion, what ends up happening, again, similar process. Initial access, bad guy gets in and finds a doorway. They make lateral movements. They find data that has valuable. But before they encrypt it, they exfiltrate the data first back to them. And then they encrypt your data locally. And then they make this ransom demand. And then they say, hey, we got your data. You can pay us. We'll give you the recovery keys. But maybe you pay that fee and you get the recovery key, and the recovery key works really slow to unlock the encrypted data. And then they come back and they threaten you with the data leak. They say, we still have your data and we now need another ransom, and you now need to make another payment. So you see the danger here with double extortion. You're going to get hit with two charges by the bad guy. So I hope that makes sense. Again, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. We do have a really cool use case, though, that comes from the shopping cart world. And we have this tool that allows businesses to understand if their shopping cart, their online shopping cart, is secure or not. So in this example here, we have a client who we scanned their environment, we scanned their shopping cart. We found that card data was being transmitted to multiple locations. Uh-oh, this is a violation of PCI. And in this example here, you got to remember, folks, sending card data only once during a transaction is the best practice. It's the best thing to do. And if you got it sent, if you're sending card data more than once, it could mean that either A, you don't have it set up correctly, your shopping cart, your system's not secure, you're increasing your risk, but it also may be a sign that your business, your shopping cart's already been infiltrated by a threat actor. And that's what we prevent with Shopping Cart Monitor. So hope that makes sense. And talking about Shopping Cart Monitor, and MageCart is the main threat actor that we're concerned about here. We are concerned about MageCart. There's 7 different flavors of MageCart as a threat actor, and they all have different tactics and techniques and processes they use to infiltrate the shopping cart. But a company by the name of Recorded Future put out a report. They said that MageCart infections, so we're talking about e-skimmers here, skyrocketed by 103% in just 6 months. Skyrocketing, folks. So next week, again, reminder, we're going to talk about how to prevent e-skimming in your business and what is it we do and how does this shopping cart thing work that we're hearing so much about. So there you have it. There are some stories that get us fired up. This is the therapy portion of the show. And what that means is we talk about things that got us upset, and now we're going to let off the steam a little bit. So we mentioned last week about Internet Archive. Their website got breached. It's now on the 4th. I had to think about that. The 4th breach. You guys have no idea how long it took me to get this graphic built. All right. This was like a 6-day process. Now, I'm only kidding. But the bad guys have now got into Internet Archive 4 times. As of this morning, Wayback Machine was back online. But they have disabled the site multiple times. And boy, they're in some serious trouble. And it's interesting how Internet Archive is responding to it. They said, well, we restored everything. We got our tools back. The hacker is saying, no, you didn't. You're lying. And in fact, I actually have access to your entire IT support system, your ticketing support system. Wow. They use Zendesk, and he's able to read all of the support tickets. He knows exactly what they're doing, what things are out, all the problems. And not only did the bad guy say that, but he also said, they have not rotated their API keys yet. They've not reset them. Their GitLab secrets also. No rotation on the API keys. And I still have access to the personal data of everyone at Internet Archive and Wayback Machine. Oh, it's such a mess, folks. These guys, they really need help. Their IR plan is not working. Call in the cavalry. They need help to get them back online. This story just blew my mind. I can't believe you can hack a robot vacuum. These vacuums by EcoVac, if you use the D-Bot vacuum, the D-Bot models, these are the ones you need to be concerned about. They're going around. The robots are eating the pets, folks. All right. Robot vacuums, they're yelling slurs. Oh, man, this poor owner. I had a friend who sent me this image of the robot vacuum with a knife on it. Is that next? And the owner said, it could have been worse. I'm like, is that worse? Having a knife attached to your robot vacuum? But companies like EcoVac, they need to spend more on cybersecurity. They're releasing products. A lot of tech companies do this. They put out a product and they don't put any investment into cybersecurity. Oh, man. Redbox? You guys remember Redbox? They went bankrupt. And now they're trying to get rid of all these machines, these Redbox machines. You can find them really cheap online right now. But a programmer went in and said, hey, how secure are these Redbox machines? And she found that the kind of code you get when you hire 20 new graduates who technically know C+, C#, but none of them has written any software before. So the programmer found that I could get access to a person's name, zip, usage history, last 4 digits of their credit card. The customer rented, by the way, a copy of The Giver and The Maze Runner. I don't know. Maybe it's a good movie. I don't know. I've never seen it. But, this reminds me so much of the voting machines. Remember when they were selling cities would resell their old voting machines on eBay, and they wiped the memory clean. So all the memory of people's votes and everything was stored in the logs. And this is a challenge with Redbox right now. Okay, what else is going on? The government saying we're fed up. Stop the endless ransomware payments. This has got to end. And they're saying, what if we just proposed banning ransomware insurance. Oh man, the insurance company lobbyists, they're not going to be happy with that. The troubling practice must end of paying ransomware. And they said maybe we need to have stricter requirements when you can pay ransomware or not. So I don't know if they'll ever be able to stop that. That's a business now, big billion-dollar business. So SEC, you remember that breach with the SolarWinds? Yeah. Well, a lot of times companies put out these breach announcements and they're terrible. They're absolutely lame. They tell you nothing about the breach. Well, 4 of these companies are getting fined. I wish more of this would happen. When you put out a breach announcement, you got to write it the correct way. And by the way, here is our time for writing 101, how to write a breach announcement. Number 1, don't say the threat actor accessed a limited number of the company's email addresses. That tells me nothing. That is one way that a company gets fined. Don't describe cyber intrusions and risks in very generic terms, and don't minimize the attack. All right? You write a better breach announcement, you won't have to deal with those kind of fines. A $4 million fine. Wow. All right, what else is happening in the world? We got some data breaches in the news. Not many happening, believe it or not. There's been a slow week for data breaches, thankfully. We did know about the Cisco breach last week, but we chose not to announce it until we had a little bit more attribution. We now know that Intel broker, the bad guy Intel broker, Intel, by the way, broker was the ones behind AMD breach and Apple breach. By the way, the way this would happen is they have this forward-facing, I don't know what you want to call it, a front-facing dev hub, and the public-facing dev hub environment was how the bad guy figured out the doorway into the environment. So, but here's the fallout from this, right? We don't know yet. We're still waiting on news. But all of these other tech companies use Cisco products. So Microsoft's caught up in this. AT&T, Verizon, Chevron, BT, a whole bunch. T-Mobile again. Oh man, T-Mobile's caught up in this. I just noticed that. All right, what else is happening in the world of news? Pokemon. We talked about Pokemon last week. Remember, we were pretty upset last week about Pokemon, the video game developer. Well, now we know that they're making a video game for the Switch 2, the Nintendo Switch 2, and the source code, the entire game, has now been released on the dark web. Oh man, the worst is yet to come for these Pokemon. This is a game developer. All right, Casio also, they're giving an update about their breach. They're just saying, hey, we don't have any prospect of recovery. Good luck. But we're having a sale on Casio watches right now, okay? Oh, man. All right, and then finally, our last part of the news. You guys know what a honeypot is? You ever heard of a honeypot? Honeypots are these fake networks that lure bad guys in, and oftentimes what you have in there is fake traffic going on. You have fake IPs. You have a lot of weird stuff going on in there to try to bait the bad guy into thinking they are in a real network. Well, Microsoft is now using honeypots to try to get their threat actors into the environment and then study them. They're trying to study them. So interesting stuff. $300,000 fine. This is a big fine, folks. This is what happens, okay? We're talking about medical data. We're talking about taking screenshots of PII information. And you wonder what happens then when you have a breach and the bad guy gets access to those screenshots. Well, you get a $300,000 fine. That's what happens. All right. There's a CAPTCHA stealing malware. Basically, it's out there right now. I think this was Unit 42 from Palo Alto that put together this report. If you want to learn more about how CAPTCHAs can be redirected and how they can be abused, they did a good job on this report, so congrats on them. There's a new Senate bill about HIPAA. They're going to amend HIPAA to do more cybersecurity audits, more stress tests that are going to require them of healthcare entities. This bill did not get it got introduced, but it did not get passed yet. So this could be an update to HIPAA, folks. And then, of course, AI news as we wrap up our last story. Anthropic is the latest AI model. It is saying that they can now control actions on a computer. They can search the internet. They can click buttons. They can input text. Why do we even need to come into work anymore? Well, Anthropic is saying their AI model is the most advanced. And JP Morgan saying they're going to start deploying AI in their banking products. So interesting stuff. That is it, folks. Join us next week. We talk about preventing e-skimming and online shopping cart threats. And as always, we love you having you with us. Have a good one. See you next time.